Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dare Dallas webinar. Now, thankfully, if you joined us for some of the previous years that we've been doing webinars, we've had some fantastic guests on, and hopefully over the summer, we're going to be exploring a few more things and speak to a few more interesting people. And starting out with Ashley. Ashley, can you give us a bit of a rundown on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. My name's Ashley Innes. I am an Asian art specialist, and I also do general personal property valuations. So I have been doing that for a few years now, and I've actually only been using AI for about the last year and a half or so. That has been a bit newer for me, but I've really jumped into it and done a lot of research on it and had a lot of conversations. The field has been moving very quickly, and I've done my best to move along with it.
Absolutely, and I think you kind of jumped the gun on me a little bit, introducing what
Sorry.
introducing what the subject of this webinar is going to be about. Now, we get asked questions all the time about AI, how it's going to impact our world, how it impacts valuations, how it's going to affect them, how it's going to be for the good, how it's going to be for the better. Now, Ashley, in your definition, what is AI? What is artificial intelligence?
Well, I mean, it's a very good question because there's a lot of confusion about it. AI it stands for artificial intelligence. It's not actually an old term at all. It's been around for a long time. A lot of people would have heard it first from the movie The Matrix, which was quite a while ago now. But it basically it's a type of technology that simulates human intelligence. And it can be through chatbots or Google searches, many other different things, but it's supposed to be a type of intelligence that is meant to mimic our own.
So we've been actually using AI, but maybe in a different way, maybe in a different kind of form. Maybe this kind of intelligence has been around for a lot longer than we know. However, we're just using it more because the terminology has changed.
Yeah, I think everyone has really been thinking about AI pretty much since AI chatbots came out. I think since 2022, it's become a huge explosion of a conversation. But we've been using it for a long time. A lot of people claim to have a very anti-AI stance, but use it every day. Well, in many professions and even our own, if you're using a simple Google search, you're already using AI. Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, if you are searching for something on Google, if you're using a TFL website, if you're using anything, I'm sure these things are loaded with what one could call artificial intelligence because they're trying to work out things for you using a methodology that is similar to what a human would effectively use. Would that be right?
That's definitely right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to have a look at today how and why and where AI is going to affect our world of valuations. So let's start with the negative points because we'll get through the negatives and hopefully move on to more positives. But the negative parts of AI within the valuation field. Now, a lot of people that speak to me have said, "Oh gosh, are you just going to use AI for that? Are you just going to, basically plug it in and say, tell me what this is and what it's worth." Now, obviously, we don't do that, but could you actually even do that?
One definitely shouldn't. There are programs out there where you can ask something and plug it in and it'll give it a value. You can either do that typing it directly into an AI chatbot, or there are services out there that claim to be completely technology-led valuations. But I wouldn't recommend it because there's no accountability at all. And you also don't know what technology has gone into it and who, if anyone, is verifying it.
I was going to say, so the major issue I would have, I suppose, and this is my limited experience of AI as we know it, as you quite rightly pointed out, I probably use AI as we don't know it every day in terms of Google searching for things and various other things. But my limited knowledge of AI as it is, as things like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude seems to be another very popular one at the moment. It seems to be very, very persistent and very insistent that it's right all the time and seems to kind of tell me that this is this and this is this and my train is going to definitely get in at a certain time or I'm definitely going to arrive at this time when actually it couldn't be further from the truth, but it still wants to convince me that it's right.
Yeah, they can be wrong all the time. And I think I think a big mistake that clients make, and other arts professionals as well, is assuming that they're all the same, and that if something was said by a computer, it's right. Computers, just like people, make mistakes every day because computers were programmed by people. And just in the same way that no human beings are the same, no two people are the same, no two chatbots are the same. So if you were interested in looking into this, for insurers, anyone across any profession, because it would apply to many of them. If they were interested in doing an experiment, they could take the different chatbots that you mentioned, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity is another big one, Copilot's another big one. They could take the same question, put it into all of them, and get completely different answers for every single one. So yeah, they definitely make mistakes, and I've actually done it as an experiment sometimes, asking multiple chatbots the same question, and then copy pasting the answers from the different chatbots and making them have a conversation with each other, and then have them fight it out.
So this either sounds
Right.
like a fantastic idea, or just as you pointed out, something from the Matrix where everything goes black and very bad.
Oh, definitely, definitely, yeah. So yeah, they're programmed by different people, and they have different funding, different perspectives, and different priorities from the people who programmed them. So and
It's
the
going to
technology.
say the influence from so many different angles. I mean, obviously, if you've got something that is made by Microsoft, its influence is going to be tell me what the best kind of product for such and stuff. It's obviously going to be Microsoft led, and one
Yeah.
could only assume that it'll be influenced by so many different factors.
And there are cultural differences too. Different countries have different technology, and they will program their chatbots to prioritize different things. There are a million different things at play here, and they're variable in the same way that human beings are.
That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about the cultural differences and where these things are programmed. But do they actually rely on physical algorithms that have been basically given to it by a human and saying, learn from me?
That's exactly it. So it's there are multiple steps involved. They're programmed first by a person or a team of people, and then they're supposed to learn from the data that they grab from online. So really, when you're asking something to ChatGPT, you're never actually getting any new information. It grabs and synthesizes and kind of re-spits out any information that it's grabbed from elsewhere online. So it doesn't really have any original ideas.
I mean, as you were saying, though, I think one can take from it the idea of if you put in a question and take the answer and then ask it to reverse the answer into a question, it's never going to come up with the same thing again. And you have this kind of photocopier kind of mentality whereby the answers gradually degrade over a period of time. And the knowledge that it's trying to kind of bring out and bring out and bring out kind of deteriorates rapidly. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, and I think that principle that you've explained has a big effect on object identification as well. So I mean, we're talking about applying all of this to valuations, and there's so many different areas and opportunities for it to go wrong. And one way I think to convince a client, if to convince a client that a chatbot might not know what it's talking about is. If you ask the chatbot to generate an image of what you're talking about, it's a really quick way to kind of showcase that it's a computer, it's not a person, and it might know something a little bit in one area, but it can't apply it to even the simplest principle somewhere else. So for example, if it were because I'm an Asian art specialist, so if it were a vase and it insisted that it had certain characteristics, and if it were worth this and came from there and were from a certain time period, if I asked it to then generate an image for me of the exact same thing, it wouldn't be able to do it accurately. It wouldn't look anything like the client's object. And a human being, assuming that they had some sort of artistic skill, they would be able to do that because they could make the parallels. So it's called artificial intelligence, but it doesn't connect the dots. It doesn't have the same big picture thinking in the way that a human being does, even though it can carry out a lot of smaller tasks a lot faster.
I think one of the prime examples of that, I suppose, is in a slightly different field. Is when you're trying to look at or decipher whether an image is AI generated or not. I think that there seems to be this common thing where people have got six fingers or something like that, because
Yeah.
it can tell you to a very intelligent level what they might be thinking, but it can't accurately tell them how many fingers they've got or something along those lines. Would that be right?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up because it reminds me of an issue that I encountered for the first time about 6, 8 months ago, where I was working on a project and some chatbots, when they generate images, they are very clear and they tell you about it. Gemini has their little logo in the lower right corner, and others don't. So there are ways you can tell. You can look at the file data and see where the source is. So it'll probably say if it came from a chatbot. Um, but I was working on this valuation, and in the lower left corner, it was so small I could barely see it. It said this image was generated by AI, and I thought, oh my God, because it was a remote valuation. It was a desktop
So
job.
they're trying to do a desktop with AI generated images.
Yeah, and so I ended up resolving the issue with the client, but I had to approach them and say, hey, like it's an ethical violation if I give a value on this and sign it and put my name to it based on something that might not exist. And of course, I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. And it ended up they ended up saying, oh well, I just touched the image up a bit to make it more presentable for you so you could see it. And I said, that's very kind, that's great. I need to see the real picture, please.
Well,
And I ended up being lucky that it was a case that if I hadn't noticed it, it wouldn't have changed the valuation that much. But yeah, you really do have to ask for the original images.
But I think you've touched on a really, really good point, and that's the ethical use of things such as AI. Because from a client perspective, they may not think, oh gosh, well, I'm just going to touch up this image or whatever, and make it look a little bit more presentable, either to a valuer or to an insurance company or something along those lines. But in terms of what we can accept for images like that, it's a big no-no, isn't it, really, on the ethical front?
Definitely. And there are conversations happening about this in the States right now with some of the governing bodies for valuers who are talking about AI. And there's no one consensus. It's so early in the age of this type of technology that everyone on both sides of the pond they're still trying to figure it out. But there are a few things, and I'm taking some of this advice from the Appraisal Foundation. There are four things that you should keep in mind. You should keep in mind ethics, competency, scope of work, and record keeping. And there's so many elements to all of those. I mean, it's really a huge set of ideas that you have to keep in mind when you're working with AI alongside AI. But from an ethical perspective, there are a few things that you have to think about. But I would say the biggest one is client privacy. And there are way too many valuers who don't do that. But you do have to be careful because all of these chatbots have settings that you can turn on or off where it reports your data to the company, and it uses it to train their models. So you have to make sure that's turned off. But beyond that, you really have to either have a conversation with the client beforehand and see whether they're okay with it. Or if you're doing very basic things, you should be redacting most of the information. So you should never really be uploading entire files into chatbots. You should be redacting any sensitive information or any identifying information. So, for example, if you take pictures at someone's house and it's really obvious from the picture whose house it is, or any kind of affiliation to the client, that sort of thing needs to be removed if it even ends up going in a chatbot at all, which in a lot of cases it shouldn't.
No, I was going to say, is the chat bot in terms of AI, the only thing that a valuer could potentially use? Are there any programs, or are there anything? Because we all know ChatGPT, we all know Copilot and some of the other ones that you mentioned. But I'm presuming these chatbots, are they going to be the only thing that you can use? I mean, there's Google Images
No.
as well, and there are other things, aren't there? I mean,
Yeah, there are a lot of other things, and some of these things have been around for a long time. So, as you meant, as we discussed earlier, anytime you Google something, and increasingly with Google, it's integrating AI more and more into its interface. So sometimes when you Google things now, a Gemini summary will come up. So unless you manually turn that off, which I would say the overwhelming majority of people don't, you're going to get AI very integrated into your Google experience. It can be in databases that valuers and other arts professionals have been using for a very long time. So, Mutual Art, Worth Point, Art Price, Artsy, ArtNet, all of those. More and more so, but all of those have always used AI. So if you say, "Oh, I don't use AI," but you spend a lot of your time researching using those websites, you're
I was
already
gonna say, if
using
you're an
AI.
art valuer, then you spend your life on those websites. So it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
It's,
it's a good thing. AI isn't all bad, but you
I
do
was
have
going
to
to
be
say,
especially careful.
let's bring out the good points of AI, because whilst we're all not as au fait with it as you are, Ashley, it's going to become more a part of our everyday life, and it's going to be more a part of the life of our clients, our insurers, our brokers, and I think as well as kind of being useful in kind of our everyday lives, but in terms of valuations, it can be useful, can't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's incredibly useful. In the same way that when the internet came out, it revolutionized pretty much everything, the way that we do our jobs. AI already has and will continue to shape how we do our jobs as well. So, valuers at our core, we're researchers. We're a hybrid of academic and market researchers. So, AI, when it's used properly, is best used as a research tool. And I'm really mostly talking about the report writing process because there are a million ways you can use AI beneficially for your business outside of that. And insurers will be using it in a lot of beneficial ways as well. And there are ways that insurers and valuers can work together to use AI to kind of streamline the process. But yeah, for valuers, the main one is report writing and report research. So, for example, if you're a generalist valuer and you know what something is, but you might not have the right verbiage to describe it, you can research it with AI, and it'll help you find other comps or other descriptions of it online that can help you make sure that you're cataloging it correctly. Um, I would put an asterisk by this, but it can help with comp search as well. It should never help with comp selection because you have to have the competency yourself to do that. But it can help with so many things and proofreading as well. I know over the last decade, a lot of people used Grammarly or other software to help make sure that they didn't have typos in their reports. But you can use AI to actually build bespoke programs to help you with your report writing. And when I say report writing, you should obviously always be writing your own reports. That goes without saying. But AI can streamline the process, and then that ends up being less expensive for the client, and we're able to get a lot more work done.
I think the thing that you made kind of quite clear there, and a thing that I've always worried about with AI, using it to find comparables and things like that. The problem that I would always have with finding comparables using AI and not sifting through them yourself is that it can't accurately look at something and go, well, this is as close as we are going to get, because there are so many variables when we're looking at comparables. And
Yes.
looking at comparables and saying, okay, well, this is from a similar period, not quite the same, but it's just as good because of this. And it doesn't know how to do that, does it? And I think in terms of the way it would set itself out, yes, it's useful for finding certain things, but you have to be the person as the valuer to actually ascertain which of those things are useful and which of those things are dismissible because that has nothing to do with them.
Yes, you have really cut to the heart of the primary issue when using AI for your drafts for your report. Um, the thing is that AI chatbots at their core are text-based models, and what that means is they can sometimes use that you can use an image and have it give you a basic description of what it is, but they were not designed to be image-based models. They were built to receive text, write text for you, and sift through text that it finds on the internet. So an example is, for example, I have a water glass here. If I needed help, it's a very basic item. I know what it is. There's no, like, the readily apparent identity is indisputable, but I could take a picture of it and have AI help me find out what the brand is. I could take a picture of the bottom, I could see what model it is, I could see what year it is. It's okay for that sort of really basic thing, but anytime you bring analysis into it or deeper, more critical levels of thinking, it falls apart instantly. And so we were touching on the comp search and the comp selection. So while if you give it a picture, it can give you a basic description of what's going on. The second you ask it to do any analysis or look at any picture that appears anywhere else on the internet, it's all gone. So um, I'm an Asian art specialist, and I work with sometimes very rare antiques. Rare in the sense of quality, but also rare in the sense of just there aren't that many of them, or they can be quite niche. I work on a lot of niche projects, and what that means, the implication of that is that there often aren't a lot of suitable comps out there, or just comps, period.
Yeah,
Um, so it should never be making a decision for you about what suitable comps are. If you have trouble finding something, if you type in the right prompts, it can help you find something, but it should have zero input on whether it's suitable. So working with Buddhist antiques, it almost never gives me the right thing. But yeah, I think that brings me to another point, which is that the information you get is only as good as the information you give. So the
that's
more you write, the
a great
better
point.
it is.
That's exactly the point that I was going to make. And I think, as you quite
Yeah,
rightly pointed out, in some very, very niche subjects, and
yeah,
this is possibly why you and I both, hopefully and probably, still go back to certain books, because a lot of the knowledge in
yes.
these books even isn't online in terms of if we're looking for information for me with certain watches. There's nothing online about certain kind of periods of watches and certain models. Whereas if I go to a Mondani book or something, there's a load of information that hasn't, even in the 30 years that the internet has been around, still hasn't transferred over to the internet. And I'm kind of sure that even whilst this information is going to be searchable via AI, it's not going to find everything, is it?
No, it's not going to find everything. And if you're lucky, in some cases, it'll tell you where to look. But in other cases, especially the niche or the subject, it's not even going to know. It's not even going to give you the right recommendations. A human being is going to know where to look, whereas AI is not. I would say the only case in which I was really successful in finding a comp for something, I had a project last year where someone was unhappy with a valuation they'd been given of a niche type of Major League Baseball trophy from like 40 or 50 years ago. And it wasn't a trophy for the players, it was a trophy for an executive, and there were almost no good comps out there. And I was really kind of pulling my hair out trying to find this. And so I did the very thorough Google search. I looked at some other sources. I talked to some auction houses, and no one could find it. The sports specialist who valued it before me couldn't find it. But I just kept typing different prompts into AI and learning about what sorts of things to look for. And then finally, after about an hour of doing this, I found a comp that no one else had been able to find. But you do have to be persistent. And I would say, that was a rare exception in most cases. It's not that great for comp searches.
But I do think that sometimes with AI as well, potentially, you could be almost telling it what you want to hear, and it will
Yes.
find you an answer based on what you want to hear, as opposed to what you should be hearing. Do you see what I mean? You could be saying,
Yes.
find me a reason. And I'm not saying this is what you did, but you could almost be saying, find me a reason why this is worth £50,000. And it could almost say, oh, well, okay, well, I can find this comparable. And I think in that kind of sphere, it's not necessarily an unbiased opinion, is it?
There are huge instances of confirmation bias. And it's great that you bring this up because I try to stay on top of the trends within our own subfield of AI and valuations, but I also keep track of AI technology and research as it's emerging. And earlier this summer, there was a research group at Oxford who conducted a study on and this is so niche, on the warmth of AI chatbots, and specifically how warmth settings affects accuracy. And
When
that,
you say warmth, as in tone, or as
yes,
Oh my
Yeah.
word, gosh, they must be very, very interesting people to be discussing that.
Yes. And so you were saying that, ChatGPT tells you what you want to hear. And a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually go into your AI chatbot settings and turn up or down the warmth or other things so that it's not that it's not that you're telling it to give you what you want to hear, but it's nicer, it's more conversational, it's friendlier, it's more understanding, it's your pseudo therapist. So
Wonderful. I had no idea that that was the case, and yes, I'm going to explore that, no
So
doubt.
you can see the recipe for disaster, right? So a client has it on the wrong settings, often just the automatic default settings. And then someone gives them, we give them a valuation and say, "Oh, I'm very sorry. This is a modern reproduction. It's beautiful. It's got decorative value. It's high production for what it is." And they say, "Oh no, but ChatGPT told me that it's worth, 100,000 quid, and it's actually authentic, and it's like the most important thing that's ever been made." And yeah, we now have to we have to be prepared with the list of reasons why ChatGPT was wrong and we're right.
That's only
So
because you've got it set to friendly granny mode.
yeah, essentially, yeah.
Gosh. Okay. Well, I had no idea about that. And I can pretty much guarantee that a significant amount of our viewers will have had no idea that you can adapt your chat bot so it's actually kinder to you. And to my mind, that kind of almost defeats the purpose of using it as a research tool if you have it on those kind of settings. So
Yeah.
that's a really, really interesting point. What I was going to say, just moving on to this point, is that we touched on this briefly at the top of the show, where we were saying a few years ago, well, more than a few years ago, and I'm old enough to remember when we were researching things using books primarily, and the internet came in. Now, everyone was convinced that that's it. We don't need valuers, we don't need valuations because the internet is going to do everything for us. However, we've learned that over the last 30 years or so, since the internet actually has come about, it's incredibly useful for some things, and we can't deny that it's used in our everyday lives. However, the ability of the internet to actually replace things, and I've always loved a good phrase, is which you can't read the internet. You can read a book. You can't learn specific, well, you can learn specific things, but you can't garner the knowledge to be able to go and look at a room full of things and say, well, I know what that is and I know what that is because I've read about it in a book. You can't do that with the internet. And my feeling about AI is that it's going to go a lot in the same way as the internet, and it hasn't destroyed the marketplace, it hasn't destroyed the knowledge, it hasn't destroyed the specialists that we still keep, because the ability to differentiate between the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the good, the bad, the better, is something that the AI and the internet will never be able to do.
Yeah, I would say curious people are always going to remain curious, hopefully. Preliminary studies have shown that it has made people a bit less curious or less inquisitive, less likely to follow up with certain questions. So if you do a traditional Google search, you have to read the list yourself of options to click on and engage in that thinking process and decide which ones you want to click on and what information you want to read, what information you want to skim, what information you think can go in the bin. The problem with AI chatbots is that it takes that all out for you. It makes those decisions. It sifts through everything. It reads it. It synthesizes it. It decides what it should tell you and what it should present as authority. So yeah, I think you raise a really good question about the internet changing things. I think it really depends on the type of person. For some people, their eyes are going to light up and think, oh, and they're going to say, oh, wow, this is a new opportunity for me to research things really thoroughly. For other people, unfortunately, mentally, it might make them a little bit lazier. And I think if I could give any advice, it would be to just question everything. You would do it with a person. Our clients question us if they see a value on the page that they don't like, they're very quick to ring us up and say, what is this? It's worth more or whatever, just to follow up and have a
That's a
conversation.
great point. That with AI, there's nobody to question, apart from if you put it in again, it might come up with a different answer because it's based on you saying, I want a different answer.
Yeah, and you can trust human beings because we have a professional responsibility and obligation. If we make a mistake, there is professional responsibility. We are
And significant
we have to
PI
answer to it.
to cover it. I mean, this is the point. I mean, you can't sue Copilot for wrong information. I mean,
It can't be cross-examined.
exactly. And also, I think that, in terms of it will, as you quite rightly pointed out, come out with 3, 4, 5, 6 completely different answers. And being completely different answers, it's going to come out with completely different values as well. The point of evaluation, as we've kind of made, is the fact that you want to feel secure in the amount that you're insured for, or the amount that you're paying inheritance tax, or in other situations that the value is correct and it is the true value. And I think the point that we're kind of getting to this is that whilst it's a useful research tool, it's never going to be able to give you a totally 100% accurate valuation based upon all of the factors that a human brain and a human pair of eyes can.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are so many different factors that go into that. It can be education, years of professional experience, access to offsite materials, all the things that we talked about, and the tech just not being there yet. I mean, it can give you an accurate valuation for a handful of very basic things or certain types of art that are very straightforward, like really blue chip artists with lots of information online. But the second you get to anything that's like even a little bit complicated, the accuracy vanishes.
I mean, I can imagine with the art world or the Asian art world, as you say, where these pieces are one-offs. They're unique items. There's no way in the world, in my opinion, that a computer program is going to be able to say, okay, I've got 2 pictures by the same artist, painted a year apart of totally different subjects. You've seen one of them and you've got the information on this one piece. Here's another one that's completely different. Give me an opinion and a value based upon what you know. There is no way in the world that I think that any computer program or anything like that could accurately value the one that it's never seen before, only based upon something that it's seen that is completely different, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think something to really communicate to clients is that there's this misconception that it is always going to save you time. And yeah, there's so many ways in which AI can save you time, especially, with proofreading and organizing spreadsheets, uploading photos, things like that. There are legitimate uses for that. But if AI gets it wrong, it doesn't save time. It makes it a lot longer. There's a case study that I like to reference. So last year I had an Epirus textile that was given to me to value, and so this was shortly before I started using AI chatbots and really getting interested in it. So I approached this case totally the traditional way. And while I do work with Asian art, Epirus textiles and Ottoman textiles, things like that, those were not really within my specialist area. But it sounded really exciting. I thought the project was cool. I took it on. The client's husband had bought it at a flea market 2, 3 decades ago, and was ready to bin it. And it ended up being worth a lot of money. And the way I figured it out was I rang up a specialist, a trusted specialist who had about 6 decades of work of experience in work, and he answered it for me in a second. And so when I started working on AI research, I thought of this project and I went back and I thought, okay, just as an experiment, what's going to happen? And so I asked 3 different models, and they all 3 of them gave me the wrong answer, very different wrong answers. And so had I taken that approach when I had that project, it not only would I have misinformed the client, it would have taken me, weeks, months, whatever, to finally get it right. So really, people think, oh, in the technological age, I just want to send an email or put it in Chat GPT. I don't want to take the time, it's awkward. They might not answer or they might not want to, but really just pick up the phone and ask a specialist. That's
Oh no, I'm not.
that's the main
I,
point.
I'm a firm believer in this, and I think the experience that I've had, there seems to be a current kind of crop of a lot of people that are using AI for watch and handbag authentication.
Yeah.
Not naming names, but certain websites will use that as a form of saying, okay, we're giving you our kind of authentication here. And my word, I've seen some absolute howlers come through saying, yep, it's legitimate. I've also seen some things going, no, it's definitely fake, because of the way in which the photograph is taken, slightly off kind of kilter. It's put a genuine watch that is 100% genuine. I know the AD that it was bought from, and it's come back from somebody saying, no, it's fake, because the bezel was slightly and the rehaut was slightly out of alignment. And you're going, no, that's just because it's been photographed at an angle. And of course, the AI program to the person that I was chatting to had flagged it up saying, no, it's not right. No, it's not right. And these tiny little things you can't make up for, I'm not being funny, but me with a loop rather than a photograph that's taken on a slightly skew-if angle and it's saying, no, it's not right. So I think, as you say, if you're in doubt, and it's, the same with paintings, if ever I got a certain period of painting, I would always phone up David Dallas because he knows exactly everything from that period. The same with Ben Hanley, the same with Jonathan Horwich. And it's that kind of ability for them to recall everything that they've seen physically and had in front of them, as opposed to a two-dimensional image that AI has seen, in order to just kind of interpret that to what the parallels that it feels it should do. And I think, that kind of, from my perspective, is where the limitations will always be with AI, because you just haven't got that experience of seeing things firsthand.
Yes, I think those are all really great points. And I would love to share an infograph with you. And I think this would be really helpful for insurers to share with underwriters, clients, anyone like that. So let's see, can I get this full screen? There we go. Yeah, so can you see that? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank
Great.
you.
So yeah, we've talked about how AI is at its core a text-based model. So you were giving an example of valuing and authenticating watches. So thinking about arriving, the steps that it takes to arrive at the final value. So someone has taken a suboptimal photograph of a watch, right? So whenever one is valuing something, even if it is a chat bot or a human being, professional valuers and AI alike, we are both theoretically supposed to go through the same process. So the process is supposed to begin with the object ID. What is the readily apparent identity of it? So it's a watch. What kind of watch? And these are the steps that one has to go through to arrive at the value conclusion. So the object ID, the specialist is almost always going to get that right. The AI chatbot will sometimes get that right. But then you said the chatbot, ChatGPT, got the dating wrong. So if it gets the dating wrong, it's then going to look at different comps. Then it's going to select whatever incorrect comp it is and give it a poor market analysis and then come up with the wrong value. And the thing is, it can happen at any stage in this chain. So you can get the right object ID, you can get the right dating, you can even sometimes get the right comps, but then you can get the wrong market analysis. So it can pick the right comps, but it might not know how to choose which comp is the closest. So we were talking about how it's a text-based model. Even in the unlikely event that it can analyze the photographs correctly, it's not going to, it's not sophisticated enough to take into account other important factors like the provenance, the geographical location, the current market, other things like that as well. Is it a result from a small regional auction house no one's ever heard of? Even was it raining on the day of the auction? Was there a storm? Was there a national? Yeah.
This is such a great example of what AI doesn't know. And I've always said, with valuations and with valuers, we're not just valuing the item, we're valuing the client. And the client's the amount of money that a client would actually have to go to pay to replace something. And this is the vital part about valuations. It's valuing that client. AI doesn't know the client. AI doesn't know how that client would spend their money. AI doesn't know whether they would go to Curry's to buy a television or they would go to Harrods to buy a television. And two would be very, very different prices. And we are representing the client and making sure that they are insured correctly. But that graphic was very, very interesting because at any one point of those very, very crucial items, it could literally throw the rest of it out because just one tiny mistake, be it in the description, if it gets it wrong, the whole thing is gone. If it gets the date wrong, the whole thing is gone. And then, that was a really interesting graphic to show why AI potentially is very useful. However, in the practicality of it, you've got to overlook every single aspect of that to make sure all of it is right. So how is that even going to be time saving?
It's not if it gets it wrong. It definitely has to be paired with a real valuer who knows what they're doing. Yeah.
Well, I think we've kind of got to the point of saying, okay, the valuer still is the most important person in the valuation, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of reflected in institutional standards and expectations, right? So if you're a collector and you just want to get a little bit of information about your object or a starting point, or even better yet, use AI to research Dare Dallas and find us and contact us, that's the best use of AI. No, but seriously, I think for casual historical research, it's great for clients. But yeah, I think AI in some cases can be a dangerous tool and it needs to be used properly and in the right hands. And if it's a professional valuer doing it, it is going to be in the right hands.
Excellent. Ashley, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a really, really fascinating talk, and I hope all of our viewers has really, really enjoyed it as well. As I say, this is just one of a few that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. If you've got any questions for myself or for Ashley, please do drop us a line at the usual email address, which is info@darevaluations.co.uk, or please do give us a call. Get onto our website as well, darevaluations.co.uk, and we will happily get back to you. Ashley, again, many thanks, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Yes, and one final thing, if you are interested in having a recap of a lot of the things we talked about in this conversation or would like to learn more, there's actually an article about this on our website called AI Chatbots in Valuations, What Collectors Need to Know. And it's a very valuable resource for you or your clients or anyone who's interested.
And written by yourself, so obviously it's factually very...
Yes, I suppose I'm biased, but hopefully it's helpful.
And not done by AI.
Not done by AI at all, even though my initials are AI, ironically.
Ashley, thanks again. Take care. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Bye-bye.